This is the Used Car Dealer Podcast.
Hello, it's Zach here, and we have a great guest on the podcast today. All the way from Canada, Jason Harris, who's the president of Digital Dealer Solutions, as well as a marketer and podcaster via Strategy with Jason. Thanks so much for joining me on the podcast today.
Hey, Zach, it's my pleasure, man. I'm really looking forward to this. I'm excited. Usually I'm on the other side doing the interview, so it's fun to be on this side of the table now.
So let's get started. And for those of us listening to this podcast, how do you get into the car business? How do you get started in auto?
Well, I find that people in the industry get started one of three ways, right? They were either born into the business, which happens, right? They kind of stumbled their way into the business in some manner or another, or they were like me, they got conned into the business. So I got conned into the business. I actually had a roommate at the time who was working at a car dealership. I was working at a Radio Shack. So if you kind of date myself here, I'm originally from the States. I'm not from Canada, which is always kind of fun because whenever I'm down there speaking, I get introduced as a Canadian. Whenever I'm up here, I get introduced as the American. So that's always interesting. But I had a roommate that was working for a car dealership, and he asked me, "Hey, you like selling stuff and you like cars?" I said, "Yeah, sure, I like that stuff." He goes, "Well, you should come sell cars with me." And this was at a Chevy dealership, and I said, "Yeah, all right, okay. I could stop selling diodes and resistors at Radio Shack, and I can go do that." And little did I know that he received a $500 bonus if I stayed employed for longer than 90 days. So he asked me and literally every other person in the dorm if they wanted to come sell cars. All of a sudden, I showed up the first day, realized about half the people there were from our dorm. So, but the funny thing is at the end of the 90 days, I was still employed and he wasn't. So yes, I got conned into the business. That's how I got started.
Wow. And so how do you get to Canada from the US?
So I've worked in the business for a while. I started with the GM group in the States, fairly large GM group, and started off as sales, worked my way over to management, spent some time in the F&I office. Then this thing called BDC was starting up in the industry. Then there was all of a sudden websites and these people called internet leads were coming in and they didn't necessarily know what to do. So, at the time there wasn't really a title for me. So they just kind of made something up. They were like, I was called the director of internet operations because pretty much anything that had to do with these quote unquote internet people was pretty much my responsibility, which then also developed into a BDC. So that's where I started there. So I ran that all the way up until 2008 during the recession when my group was closed down. And my wife at the time was Canadian. So I kind of said, the heck with the US, I'm moving to Canada. Thought I'd just find myself another big dealer group to work with. And boy, was I surprised when I got here. It was like stepping back in time from a marketing and operations perspective in the industry. And all of a sudden I had this crystal ball and I'm like, wow, we've already dealt with all these issues. So it was very cool. I hit the ground running really quick, consulting with dealerships and dealer groups all over Canada. I eventually actually ended up owning a dealership. I owned a Mitsubishi dealership, which really was just a used car dealership with a flag
Right.
out front. For everybody that knows Mitsubishi, that's really what it was. And I had a great time doing that. Brought it up to a place where I was actually able to sell it and make a little bit of money, which is awkward for anybody who's ever owned a Mitsubishi dealership. and then I started the agency. So the agency's been running now for almost 5 years. And I started podcasting about 3 years ago, got real heavy into building a brand and putting a lot of content out there. And I pretty much haven't turned a camera off in the last 3 years. And it's been a lot of fun.
Wow. So let's talk about 2020. It was a roller coaster of a year for dealers. Talk to me about what you observed from your lens in Canada and how dealers have adapted since the pandemic.
Well, I think there's many different ways that we've kind of adapted, right? There's an operations perspective, there's a marketing perspective, and I sometimes I'm given some crap around how much tough love I give our industry sometimes, and I can do that because I've been in the industry long enough. I can give people a little bit of crap for operations and marketing. But what I'll say in 2020 is that we as an industry changed more in that 12-month period than we probably have in the last 30 years combined when it comes from both operations, the customer buying process, and marketing. So many things. And I hate identifying a silver lining. You don't want to do something like that during a pandemic, but it was actually probably one of the best things that could have ever happened to our industry. It almost gave us kind of a reset, or I like to call it kind of a sucker punch in the face, and saying, hey, look, things like, I'll give for example, we have to stop a sales process and we have to focus on a buying process. And I can explain a little bit what the difference is there. All right. Well, we have to stop marketing the $52, or sorry, the $52 weekly car, because nobody buys a $52 weekly car. And we actually have to start branding. All right. And that was a big one. And then also, I think from a communications perspective, right? It was these so-called internet people were not internet people. They were real people, and we needed to have real conversations with them. So we needed to connect with them quickly. Things, a live chat's always been around, but you saw a big adoption to that. Text messaging adoption. The ability now for me to have a real conversation in real time with the majority of the dealerships out there within seconds changed. Before we used to make our customers go through kind of hula hoops, and we made them kind of do somersaults until they could actually communicate with us. Well, that changed in 2020. We're like, no, you have a question for us? We got an answer for you. So I think those are some of the biggest changes I saw in 2020.
What are you seeing now that we're starting in 2021 in terms of like digital marketing mistakes from dealers?
Oh gosh, man, so much has changed in 2021. I mean, when you talk about things like the cookie wars, all right. Dealerships, from a marketing perspective, as an industry, relied on remarketing strategies. And so many things have changed around that. It's unfortunate right now because I don't think enough dealerships are educated on what I mean by that, in the sense of that a customer comes to your website, all right, and leaves your website. We remarket to them at a very high frequency of 188 biweekly, 188 biweekly, and that has been a strategy for us for the last 10 or 15 years, and it's worked. Well, that's going away in 2021. All right. Or it's going to be vastly limited to the amount of people you can actually market to. So that's one, right? The other thing I think dealerships are waking up to in 2021 is that we need a bit more. The customer wants more. They want to chew on something. All right. They want to connect to a brand, not necessarily just buy a product. So we're finding now moving into 2021, it's more important for now more than ever for dealerships to really identify that why buy here. No, real why buy here, not bull crap like, well, we're family owned. No one gives a crap that you're family owned, by the way. Any dealership out there thinks that's a good marketing strategy, you should just stop it right now. Now, you gotta dig deeper into what does it mean to you from an operations perspective, all right, to actually be family owned. What does being family owned change in your operational processes that are unique to you and then it's different from your competitors, right? So I would say that's probably one of the biggest things.
And you hit the nail on the head, the why buy from us. Like from your perspective, if I'm an independent dealer, smaller store, what are some of the why buy from us, I guess, at a high level we should consider?
Well, I'll tell you what it's not. All right. We already said
Sure.
it's not, it's definitely not that you're family owned. No one
Right.
gives a crap. Okay. It's not because when I buy a car from you, I get a warranty. Okay, that's not it. All right. It's not because I buy a car from you and I get tires for life. All right. It's not, I buy a car from you, I get a 50-inch TV. These are not reasons why people will buy a car from you. And what you're looking for is you got to identify reasons why someone would actually want to create and maintain a relationship with you. That is actually the better question. So, if you kind of think of why buy, well, we
Mm.
buy from brands and from people that we connect with at a relationship level in some level or form. I'm not necessarily need to be friends with every single customer you have out there, right? But you got to connect in a human way with someone, all right? Some of the if you think of even for yourself, Zach, some of the top three brands that you consistently go back to, there's something about that brand that you personally connect with. And maybe it's their approach to quality, maybe it's their approach to the environment. It's something that just it is personal to you as an individual, and that's what dealers have to focus on right now. Is that the why buy should be a series of operational processes, all right, that show you that I actually give a crap,
Mm.
that I'm going to put you first before my profit. Now, I know that sounds crazy, All right. But every single business industry that has ever done that has created more of a buying process, not a sales process. They've they make money. They make tons of money. I mean, look at Amazon's a perfect example, right?
Mhm.
As we were speaking right now, my phone just went off, and I have an image of a package that's sitting right now outside on my front door, right? Do they need to do that? Absolutely not. They don't need to do that, right? I mean, think about all the tech and the processes that had to go into building that type of little tiny element, all right? But then
Mhm.
just next to it, like I connect with them. I'll give you another quick example of something small. I was at Starbucks the other day, went to go order my Starbucks. I scanned my app, and they said my name. All right, Jason, that'll take about 5 minutes. If you want, you just can stand over there, and we'll get that out to you. Wait a second, I haven't been to this location before. How in the world did that person do I know them? For a moment there, I was like, oh crap, do I know this person? And I forgot. Then I realized as a brand, all right, they wanted to connect with me in the simplest way in the sense of my name. Names got a lot of power with people, right? And that's what they did. They built a small little process that when I now scan the app, my name pops up on their screen.
And speaking of brand, you often use the color orange for your personal brand. And you have a very unique style on social media. How should used car dealers think about building their brand and standing out from the competition?
Okay, so building a brand, all right, people connect with a brand for one of two reasons, okay? Because you educate them or you entertain them, one or the other, right?
Right.
So from a brand perspective, you have to decide what perspective you're going to go from. There's been some dealerships out there. We all have great examples that have done an amazing job of connecting with people through entertainment. Chop is a perfect example of that. The Badger commercials was another great example. Suburban's Trunk Monkey. I don't know if you remember that campaign, but that was an amazing. Like it entertained people, and you connected to the brand, all right, through entertainment. So that it was one of the reasons why you kept coming back to kind of consume their content because it was fun, it was funny, right?
Right.
I mean, Chop had his own TV show, right? I mean, you go to Las Vegas, you had the Blue Genie, you had all this stuff. It was all entertainment. It was a total circus there. I had a chance to actually go to the dealership once. It was a total circus. But or you define that your brand is educational. I work with a great dealership right now that's relatively new, but it focuses a lot on non-prime. It's a used car dealership that focuses a lot on non-prime stuff. Well,
Mhm.
all of their content is actually educating people on how not to be non-prime, but they're in the business of providing non-prime. So, but it makes sense, right? I almost
Right.
I loved talking with this dealer principal because we were so like-minded. He's like, "Look, I would rather put myself out of business. I would rather do less non-prime business, but actually connect with people at a brand perspective than do more non-prime business." So all of his marketing, all of his messaging, everything out there is about a path to prime. And he educates people on how you can get to that point. And it goes all the way down into his operations. It's a beautiful thing.
What do you think about Carvana and Vroom? They're more US based, but like, what's your perspective on brand from the online used car dealer standpoint?
You know what? I am someone who's bought a car completely online with never test driving it. In fact, actually, I just bought an RV completely
Oh,
online that's being delivered in 2 weeks that I've never even stepped foot in. It's just from all of the 360s and the pictures and all the videos I've been able to watch, purchase the entire thing. I've never even stepped foot in this model before. All right. I just had actually a couple of salespeople that work for me buy cars completely sight unseen. Now, is there a large audience out there that are ready to do that? That audience is getting bigger all the time, right?
mhm.
And I think from any dealerships out there that are listening or watching right now, I understand the audience is that, hey, look, they're a independent dealer, all right, and the key I think is meeting the customer where they want to be, right? In the sense of understand that you got to get rid of your sales process, right? That 12-point sales process, throw it away. Okay. Focus on a buying process. And a buying process puts the customer first, not the dealership. Okay. And that gives you now the opportunity to actually have a real conversation with the buyer on how they want to buy, not how you want to sell, because trust me, we know how you want to sell. All right. When you actually have a real conversation with a buyer and ask them how they want to buy, then your process has an ebb and flow to it so that it works well with every single customer out there. And I think what you've seen, you've seen a portion of this being executed with Carvana and Vroom, and you see how people are flocking to it as just a unique way. Because what it is, it's a buying process, not a sales process. That is what's key in Vroom and Carvana, is that they've defined a very specific buying process. Now, it may not be a buying process that works for every single person out there, and in fact, I don't think it does. All right, but they've gone away from a sales process. They've gone to a buying process.
So let's move on to social media. What are some common mistakes that you see dealerships make with social media?
Most common mistakes I see dealerships make with social media is they make it about them.
Hmm.
Right? Look how great we are. Look how many cars we sold. Look at our happy customers. Look at this car that's coming off the lift right now. Look at this car that just came into our shop. Look at me. 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 That's not social media. Right. This is the polar opposite of it. Right. All right. As if you talk to any influencer or social media guru, and I hate to use that because it's so self-proclaiming that anybody can call
Hmm.
themselves that. But if you look at people that are executing really, really well at a high level, is that they create content not for themselves, but for their audience. They create content that's relevant to them, not to me. It's not like, hey, look at me, look at me, look at me, look how great I am. No, it's about them. All right. If I'm a dealership right now and I'm in, I don't know, ABC town, right? Or little
All right.
town of anywhere, right? If I'm in a little town of anywhere, all right, what content actually means something to the people I'm trying to connect to, right? Because you got to think social media is international, it's monstrous, it's big, it's everywhere, all right? But as a dealership, you need to find who you're trying to connect to. There's a sea of people you can connect out there. First off, you need to find who you need to connect to. Then you need to have a real conversation about what content actually means something to those people. And then you go create content for that. Now, understand that's only one portion of social media. That's the media portion, right? And I
Right.
understand that for the most part, as dealerships right now, we do a pretty decent job of understanding media, creating content, right? There's another element to this. You actually have to be social. Isn't that crazy? We actually have to be social on social media. What are you talking about? It means you actually have to participate in conversations. You actually have to be online and actually be a person in the sense of something happens locally. There's a local fair or a new restaurant that opened up in your area. All right, you should be one of the first people within the comments down below, actually engaging, saying, "Hey, welcome to the neighborhood. I can't wait to come try your mama's recipes of whatever."
Right.
Right? Like it's actually being a person. So I think when it comes to social media, dealerships out there, big things I warn you is it's not about you, it's about your customers. All right. And you need to take time to define who those customers are. All right. Remember that it's not just the media portion. You can't just create content. This is not a field of dream scenario where it's a build in, they will come. It doesn't work that way. All right. You actually have to be social. And when you're social, you actually have to be a person, meaning engage with other content out there that's relevant to your audience. You know, if you were to come and tell me and say, "Hey, my audience is parents." Or particularly mothers with small children, because I sell a lot of minivans. My lot has a lot of minivans, and my dealership I bought every single minivan I could. That's one thing I find in used car dealerships is that we become the jack of all trades and master of nothing, and I always hated that. So for me, it was like I identified, and I would shift, I would change, but you know, it was like if you came to my lot, I was going to have 27 minivans you can choose from. So it's just like I could fulfill any type of need there. But anyways, I'm getting off topic. But that's the key of social media is those few things.
And a lot of dealers still leverage like generic autoresponders, whether it's social media or email. Talk to me about why using a generic autoresponders. Obviously, there's some good autoresponders, but why is it a bad idea to just use a generic autoresponder as a dealer?
Uh, for the simple reason is you do not communicate to anybody else like that. All right. I don't use autoresponders with my wife. Maybe I do from time to time. Like on my way. You know, those things, when someone calls and like the little
Yeah,
option
with
pops up, you're
iMessage.
like, you have like these four little autoresponders, right? And I don't know about you, but every time I ever like when someone uses one of those autoresponders against me, I'm kind of like, asshole. like, I'm like, really? You didn't have enough time to like just say, hey, I'm in a meeting. Can I call you back later? No one likes an autoresponder. That's the bottom line. We are consumers. We don't like to be responded to with an autoresponder. You shouldn't be treating your customers in any other way. Your expectations as a consumer should be is higher than that. So why in the hell do you think it's okay to spend tens of thousands of dollars in marketing to generate these great opportunities to have these wonderful conversations, and then you screw it up by sending them a stupid freaking autoresponder? And look, customers are smart. You're smart. I mean, you're a consumer, so you're smart. You know this, right? If you smell that it was an autoresponder, you know immediately. And boy, does that say a lot about you as an individual, that you just didn't have the time for me. You didn't have the time to send me a 3 sentence message. Like, I mean, actually, I'll tell you, I've used autoresponders, and we still do from time to time, right?
Yeah.
And you know, but if we do use an autoresponder, I'll tell you right now, those autoresponders will have 1, maybe 2 sentences in them. In fact, I'll even tell them it's an autoresponder. This is an autoresponder. We're letting you know that we received your lead. All right, and
Right.
someone is looking after it. Okay. All right. All right. I can accept that. That's cool. That's transparent, right? But then that's setting the stage for the next piece of conversation better be a real written piece of content to me as an individual, or even better, a video. Anyways, I can digress. I'll digress on that one, because that one I get a little heated up on. I could probably take up the whole podcast on that one topic.
So in that same like wavelength, what else in the auto dealer marketing world are dealers missing out on or relying too much on, similar to like autoresponders?
In the marketing world, similar to autoresponders, what are they missing out on? Well, I think video is a big one, right? Um,
Mhm.
when you look at the lowest cost of engagement in any marketing product out there, it's in video. I mean, we're still seeing on average anywhere between 5 to 15 cents for a 30-second view. For a 30-second view. I mean, think about that. I mean, right? There's a few things that video has, right? One thing is that video has the opportunity to evoke an emotion, right? And when you're able to invoke an emotion in your marketing efforts, right, your brain stores it in an entirely different place, and your ability to recall that information is insanely higher. In fact, it's up to 4,000 times higher than if there is no emotion attached to that. Now, what do I say by emotion, right? If you can make someone giggle, all right. If you can make them, it tugs at their heartstrings and makes them a little sad, that works too. Or even if you piss them off, and look, I know that sounds crazy, but we've had some great examples of this. Just recently, we had a client of ours record it was a Chevy dealership, and we were comparing the difference between the new Chevy and the new Ram, and he just flat out said, well, I mean, I don't know what you want me to say. It's a Ram. All right. It's a piece of crap. That's what else do you want me to say about it? Right. The guy was frustrated actually in the front of the camera. It was great. That is actually the piece that we put out there socially. Wow. I can't tell you how many people will remember that person saying crap about that Ram. But I'm not, no, by the way, I'm not saying that's a good strategy for everybody out there. The point behind this is that in your marketing efforts, you should be focusing on telling a story, right? Like,
Mhm.
I've been in the automotive industry for a long time. The art of telling stories is something that we learned very, very early on. And I'll be honest with you, we've lost that art. We've lost the art of telling stories. All right. When a customer would come in looking at a product, boy, I would have my story ready. If they were coming in to buy a Chevy Cobalt, I had my story ready. If they were coming in to buy an Aztec, I had my story ready. Now, God, that was horrible. If they were coming in to buy that Sentra Spec V, I had a story. I had something that they can connect with, right? I think from a marketing perspective, people need to understand that we connect with the story before we connect with the product. And it goes the same thing for dealers. I connect with the story behind the dealership before I connect with the dealership itself. So that's what I would say. The biggest opportunity, and where I see people are missing out on, is that they're not shooting video and they're not telling stories. They've gone away from telling stories.
So, what are some of your predictions for 2021 for auto dealers? And I know that's a big one.
Oh man, I mean, look, this is for the last 10 years. I've spent the last 10 years just strategizing, right? Just marketing strategies, operation strategies, um, customer strategies, buying process strategies. I spent so much time doing that. It's like almost, and then this year, I feel like I have to almost throw every single one of those strategies out and be willing to just really kind of listen, because you just don't know what's going on. Inventory is a big issue. We just don't know if the
Mhm.
inventory is going to be there, right? And when you do have the inventory, look, you're going to sell it. I think from a predictions perspective, I think one of two things are going to happen. This snowball of change that we've seen around making more of a buyer centric operations, communications, and marketing will either A, stick, or B, it will go back to the way it was. And I think we're going to see that late into 2021 if people are still embracing that snowball of change, or and then especially going into the beginning of 2022, is if they're still embracing that change, or they're like, okay, we're done now. All right, we're done with that. We can
Right.
go back to just focusing on interest rates and payments. So that would be my prediction for this year.
So my last question for you, what are your three best nuggets of advice for a small to mid-sized dealer running lean inventory staff during these times?
Retention. I gotta see. You gotta understand. I made a lot of my success. All right, when I had my mid store, everybody knows it's a used car dealership with a flag out front. All right, but a lot of my success was around retention, and that is not something that is typically talked about within the kind of the independent and used car dealers out there. Is that we're so focused on acquisition, is that you have to get away from that. Okay, so you really have to define what your existing customer marketing strategies are, communication strategies. All right. And this is not just about selling, too. Understand that these strategies, you should have strategies for selling existing customers, but you all should be having strategies around connecting with existing customers. So that's one big tidbit. From a branding perspective, all right, really understand the why buy here has a lot to do with why you do the things you do,
Mhm.
like why you do them. All right. Look, we all know you sell metal, and you may service metal depending on your dealership, right? But why you do it, the way you do it, is what makes you unique from everybody else. And that is the story of your brand. And that's what you need to define. You gotta understand, like, and for everyone out there that's listening right now, understand this too, is that you already have a brand. It already exists. All right. It is in the eyes of your customers. Go read your Google reviews. Look at the 2 or 3 most commonly used words in all of those reviews, and good or bad, that is your brand. Right now, as a owner, right, you need to take ownership of how your brand is perceived out there. All right. And you need to create that strategy saying, this is how we want to be perceived. These are the 2 or 3 words that I want people to describe us as. I want them to describe us as innovative or hassle-free or friendly. Those are the words I want people to use. If you go look at your Google reviews right now and they're not using those words, then you're not hitting the mark. So understand that the brand has more to do with why you do, all right, the way you do it. So I understand you sell cars, but why you do it the way you do it is what makes you unique. So that's number two. And then number three is we talked a little bit about it earlier, is get away from a sales process. Just stop selling. Just stop. All right. Try to create a buying process that gives control back to the consumer. All right. And gives them the ability to buy a product from you instead of you selling a product from you, which actually is this is a great time to do that because inventory is so low. You don't have to do a whole hell of a lot of selling. All right. In a lot of cases,
Mhm.
of course, this could be different depending on your location and where you are and inventory and all that other stuff. Right. But really take this time and this opportunity to focus on how to create a transparent, easy buying process, not sales process. So those would be my three things.
That's excellent, Jason. And for those who want to follow you or reach out to you, what's the best way to connect?
Well, you can pretty much find me on any social media platform out there underneath Strategy with Jason, LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, all underneath Strategy with Jason. We'll also I have another brand called Strategy Mob. All right. That's myself and actually a whole group of additional content creators that really give a crap about our industry and has put their time into creating content for the betterment of our operations and marketing efforts. So definitely check out strategywithjason.com or strategymob.com. You can find out there. And hey, reach out to me. I'm very, very approachable. LinkedIn is where I probably spend the most amount of my time. So, feel free, DM me. I'm always available.
Awesome. Well, Jason, thanks so much for joining us on the podcast today.
Thanks, Zach. This was a lot of fun, man. You have yourself a great day.